all valid credentials, at least in the Windows domains. Their post-exploitation persistence is much higher than what I've seen in the attacks that just spread amongst home users to do keylogging. And the reason for that is basically to continue to pilfer the data. They have to steal stuff, and that's kind of interesting as well. Right now, to hack du jour, if I hack your network and I'm pilfering data, I can't sit here and download 15 gig of data to one IP address in Asia every single day. So what they're doing is cutting everything up into chunks and sending it into different places, and then somehow it's being reassembled on the back end. The most commonly used tool to disassemble stuff being stolen from a Windows machine is RAR. People are using RAR because they can password protect the files that they're stealing so that you can't decrypt it and look at the contents of the RAR files. And RAR comes with an innate capability to slice things up. So you can RAR a file that's 2 gig in size and make it into 150 little files and then send it. It'll be encrypted, it'll be tiny, you can push it all over the internet. Kind of frustrating. And I've noticed, I think this is a lot different than when I first started looking at computer intrusions in 1993. The speed at which attackers move is way faster than 1993 through 1998. And I've seen this in monitors. Back in 1995 or 96, if we had a network monitor at an Air Force base, bad guy got on, he'd tap dance on the system for 8 straight hours, doing dumb stuff, ls-al, look at the contents of a directory. The last couple that we've wiretapped, we've seen guys come in, and I'm literally probably a minute on one system, and then boom, they're right off to the next one. They're moving very quick. They start operations on one, and they tend to be better trained and moving faster. Quick case study on the pilfering aspect of the intrusions we've seen. Most of the folks that are suffering from data pilfering intrusions, it's an ongoing incident, it's persistent. The resolution is a constant battle. And here you can see that the victim organization knew about the intrusion, and they tweaked their proxy logs because the only way out of their network was to go through a proxy. So they had great bottlenecks. People had to go out one of 4 to 5 different exit routes so they could see anything going to predetermined hostile domains. And they found some things. We responded to it, and I just wanted to show you a real response here. We were sitting in a room at the time when we did this response, and there's a little bit of pressure on it because there's a group of the victim organization were sitting there watching us. We were on an overhead, and they said, hey, can you respond to a machine right now out in California? So we deployed an agent in California. We reached across the network from where, in DC, pulled the data back, and Chris Kendall is sitting in the front row here, diagnosed this backdoor in minutes. If you look at this S-Card server program, I'm looking at all the processes running on the system, sorted by how long they've been running. So everything booted, looks like 87, 14, 39, 04 seconds, minutes, hours, days. 87 days ago is when this machine booted up. So you have 87 days ago, there's a boot process. 64 days ago, there's something that we can't even see started up. You see Explorer, which is kind of like the desktop, started up 17 days and 21 hours ago. And then all of a sudden, though, we see an SVC host, process ID of 1524, started up on March 27th of 2006. I was actually suspicious of that. It doesn't make sense to see an SVC host type process running 87 days after the boot process, but we'll get to that one. This S-Card server just looked bad right away because S-Card is a smart card service. It comes with Windows 2000. It starts during the boot process. You expect it to have started 87 hours ago. If it for some reason crashed, I highly doubt a sysadmin, unless they were using those secure access smart cards, would ever notice that this thing had crashed and they restarted at this time. So we immediately said process ID 1560, you see the big red dot next to it, could be a bad process. So the very next thing we did is said, let's look at everything created, modified, or accessed around the same time frame as this scard.svr.exe. And we noticed something right away that looked weird. I don't know what that second line is here, but there's a file called A with a tick over it, and that just looks like someone loaded up code, and it was a Unicode file name. It had no extension, but if you look at its size, it's 90,112 bytes in size. It's the exact same file as scard.svr.exe. The next step we did is grabbed scard.svr.exe to see if it's bad. If you look closely, by the way, it has the same time date stamps as kernel32.dll. This is absolutely the hack du jour right now on every backdoor we've seen in the last year. Someone will run the backdoor on your system after they've broken in, and the first thing the backdoor does is it'll copy itself to the system root directory, wherever that happens to be on your machine. So it's usually WinNT or Windows/System32 or WinNT/System32. It'll place itself in that directory. It'll take the creation time and the last modified time of a commonly used file. Kernel32.dll is on every single Windows system, unless your Windows system doesn't work right. And it's there. The next thing we did is we just took a quick look at the compilation date on SCART SVR. We had it. We used PEView. It's a freely available tool. And if you look at the compilation date, July 17th of 2005. We don't want to overthink this. This is automatically malware. If something's compiled in 2005 but has a creation date of September 5th, 2002, it's bad, period. And, but we overthought it a little bit anyway. We decided let's take a look at what this thing does. Took a quick look. We knew it was packed. And by the way, once something is packed, you automatically know it's bad. It's very rare that it's not. We took a look at the libraries this thing used. Anytime, kernel32.dll is always going to be imported. The addvapi 32.dll, when it's imported, you look at the functions that the program uses. In this case, you see the addvapi and the winsock32 libraries brought into play. The addvapi is to read, write, and query the registry, and the winsock is to open up sockets and communicate on the network. There are legitimate programs that do that, but not an SCART or smart card server. So this is a program that speaks on the network, alters the registry, probably bad. And we'll skip that one. And I'm going too far here. I was showing you the disassembly of it. Bottom line is anytime you see a file copy itself to somewhere else, it's also bad. After we, just to show you the strength and power and purpose of the backdoors we're seeing, this backdoor, after we decrypted it, allows the guy to do whatever he really wants on the system, all command line, and it's pretty nice. It allows him to put files on the victim system, take files from the system. He can reconfigure his backdoor on the fly. He can halt the system or reboot the system. Halting shuts it off. Rebooting, he'll probably do that to install something else on the machine, and he needs a reboot to get it to run appropriately. So it's pretty good on how it works. Backdoor had configuration data stored in the registry, and we're seeing that's common as well. For those of you that do disassembly, anytime you see in your disassembled dead list of code something right into the registry and it's XORing it for some reason, probably bad. Anything that borrows time date stamps from another file, which is very obvious in your disassembly, bad. But one of the things I have noticed in incident response, it takes people days to do that triage of where's the bad program, and then if they have a program that's suspicious, the moment it's suspicious to the moment they've confirmed it's bad sometimes takes 5 to 10 days. Some of the things that we're seeing change in the incident response arena, we've found that there's a need now to acquire and analyze the contents of RAM, and there's 3 things that we do when we acquire RAM. We acquire all of RAM, and we do that now. Then we start acquiring specific process space on suspicious processes. One of the worst things you can do, I think, in today's land, when you're responding to a computer intrusion, is that end user shuts his machine off the minute he thinks he's been compromised. I'd highly recommend if you leave here, if you have end users and you need to give them some kind of process if they think there's been an intrusion, tell them just to unplug the network cable. That way, if it's a worm, virus, or some nuisance, it won't continue to propagate and damage your network. But at the same time, you can still get some great quality things out of RAM. The attack tools of today, they're only going to be in RAM, and there's no question that the code that we're going to see bad guys writing in the next few months and years, you're not going to find them on hard drives. Yes? Yeah, in other words, basically the question was, have you found any network-aware viruses? I'd say almost all of them are, because they're all polling for, is there a TCP/IP stack I can use? I'm going to use it if there is one. And then we're seeing folks that, obviously, with the rootkits, create your own TCP/IP stack in the kernel so that it circumvents all the firewalls you've put in place. Absolutely. In other words, the question would be, have you seen a backdoor that once it recognizes it's not on the network, it starts deleting itself? I haven't seen that, and there's a risk there too. Bad guy doesn't know if he's on a laptop when he hacks it right away necessarily, or a desktop, and if it shuts off or is off the network for a second, he may not want that backdoor to delete itself. Could it be done? Absolutely. It would be very simple. You could have it poll, and if it polls every hour, it's sending a beacon, and it fails 3 times in a row, wipes itself. Yeah. Self-deleting code is very, very common nowadays. We run into it a lot in the financial services when the end users and clients are getting compromised. Second thing we've noticed, there's a need to locate well-hidden user space code. That's an absolute fact. It was kind of neat in 1996 when I was in the Air Force responding to computer intrusions. Bad guys named their bad stuff 1.exe. That's easy to know it's bad. You know, okay, or evil.exe or backorifices file names. I mean, it was very easy to find this stuff. In Linux land or Unixville, it was a little bit harder to find backdoors, but nowadays I've never seen it harder in user space. If you want to know what the backdoors are going to be called in your network, just do a Control-Alt-Delete, go to processes and look for everything that runs a system, and that's what they're going to name their backdoors. And it's almost impossible for you to determine the difference between bad guys service running on your machine and a normal service from Windows. A couple reasons why. I'm running a standard Windows XP machine right now. I have to show you this because I'm still stunned that after years and years of doing incident response, when I do a PS service on my machine to see all the services running, I have over 90 services running on an XP box, and I don't even know what the majority of these are. Some of you might recognize your own backdoors on my system. Yeah, where this machine's been and what I've done, sometimes I just, you know, after a year, I think I just got to throw them out or reinstall via Ghost. But I don't know what all these are, and I can tell you right now, 90% of all, and maybe even higher, of the Windows backdoors are installed as services, and we'll go into detail on that. But even a very knowledgeable sysadmin may not find these, nor should they be expected to, because these are very well hidden. And that creates number 3, the need for malware triage. If you think you found something bad, let's say you work at a financial service and you got a geek in the basement, he calls you up, I think I found malware, and you're managing this guy. You really want him to tell you yes or no in about an hour. The 5 days, the 8 days, that's too darn long. And there is a way to do it pretty quickly. And, but right now I am seeing at times 5 to 8 days for that analysis to occur, even just to say this stuff is bad, which seems long to me. And then the rumor mill starts too, because almost every intrusion I've ever been involved with, the rumor that there's a kernel level backdoor always starts to spread every single time. And then you start really looking under the skirt there to see, hey, where is this backdoor? You never find it. It's kind of interesting. And that's because of the inability to do in-depth malware analysis. And there's a couple of reasons why that occurs. We'll get to it in a second. When I say that we need to start obtaining RAM, here's the 3 things that we're starting to grab. We grab physical memory using just Linux-based, well, in this case we use DD for Windows as well, and we'll use plain DD, access the memory device, and just dump it. So if we have 2 gig of RAM, we're going to end up with a 2 gig file. No big deal. It's ugly to go through. It's probably the last thing we review on a live file system or a live system that we're responding to. We grab the page file, and the best way to do this we'll go over in a second, but it's probably access data's tool. And then we use user dump by Microsoft to dump individual processes. In Unix, it's real simple if you need memory. Just do a cat and redirect it to a file on devkmem, devmem, or devkcore, depending on your Unix flavor. On Windows, you are going to have to use a special tool by George Garner. It is free. I highly recommend it. It has absolutely saved us. We responded to an intrusion in August of 2005 where if we didn't dump memory and look at it, we would have thought only 1 machine was compromised. By dumping RAM and reviewing RAM, we recognized at the time we were responding, the attacker had valid logons to 11 other systems simultaneously. None of this stuff was available to be found in user space. None of this stuff was stored on the hard drive, because guess where the logs would be for his access to these other systems? On the other systems. So we found 11 other compromised hosts just by dumping memory, which is nice, or bad if you're the victim. So easy to do. By getting the swap file, the advantages you get when you dump all of RAM, or in this case just the process space, if an attacker hacks your system, whether it's Windows or Unix, even if there's an